Right, the Fib and Click grid in use. As this is the trial version that I'm using, I will just need to click on cancel. And there we are. That now is the FibGrid, which has presented itself on screen. Now I'm just going to run through some of the main features. And the very first thing I'm going to change is the colour of the grid lines themselves. At the moment it's just showing lines that are yellow. Clearly they don't stand out terribly well, but I've got all sorts of different colours that I can actually use here. So I think what we'll go for is a bright red. And as you can see, there are some default lines that appear every time the grid is opened up for the first time. And one of the little features to make the lines a little more prominent or less so is to use this feature. You see where I'm clicking right here, screen options, just to the right of colour, and I can make these lines as large as I so wish. Clearly that's a little bit too much, but one is a little too small for the purpose of this demonstration, so I'll just put it on number 2 for the moment. Right, so here it is. The first thing I'm just going to demonstrate is the fact that either we can click that and the grid will go full screen, or at least the outer regions of the grid will go full screen. The inner grid, which is the working part of the grid, can be resized to absolutely any size that you would wish to use. It can sort of run through really quite small, or indeed it can be set to the extremities of whatever image it is that you're actually working on at any time. So that is absolutely fully variable. There we are, just set that back down. And if I just bring it back now to the outer, which is quite resizable. Let me just bring this up a little more. I'll bring the extremities of the grid there. Mean that by moving this around and setting these particular lines on, as you can see, I'm just resizing it there to run on up to, you know, what may or may not be a high point. I can adjust it and move it to absolutely anywhere. Now I'm just overlaying this onto a live chart. It can be overlaid onto absolutely anything on the screen, so if we were to take the charts off, it'll still be there. It never actually moves. Right, so that's how mobile the grid is, and how the inner grid can be moved, and the inner grid can be moved independently of the outer. One of the interesting features here is that supposing we were to move this on down, let's just move it to that particular size, and then we actually wanted to resize on this side, then as you can see the left hand extremity, when this is moved, will not actually move. So let's just put that particular one back to there, and of course the reverse is also the case. If we resize the outer grid by moving this, then the right hand red line as it is here, or inner grid, will not actually move. Okay, so that just goes back to normal. Now let's look at one or two of the other features here. As I mentioned earlier, there are some default lines set, so every time you fire it up from the closed version, then the default lines will appear. Now to add and remove default lines, well, it's very, very simple. We'll look at the horizontal options, the horizontal lines that we've got at the moment, and what I'm going to do is just to show the 3 lines that there are here, 38.2, 50 and 61.8, and as we've got 61.8 displayed, let's just allow that one to go. It disappeared. Now what you might think is that as that was the 61.8% line, then should it not actually appear up here? Well, we've got the option of, now that the 38.2 is selected, of altering the 0 or the 100% just by clicking glass, as in mirror. Do you see what's happening there? The 38.2 will either be 38.2% from here, or we can switch it round so that it's 38.2 from the bottom. So that will happen with absolutely any of the lines, so that they're all infinitely variable. Now if we want to add on another line, it's just a question of clicking on plus, and what we can do there is to, and this is set as a standard default, that when we first start up, it will run through every time we click this up arrow, it'll go through 10%. Now if we wanted to adjust it to a much smaller amount, then it's just a question of highlighting the relevant number here. In this case it's 0.01, and it will move by 0.01%, which is clearly not very much. If you want to move by a higher increment, just click on that particular number, and in this case it's moving up 1% at a time. So it is absolutely infinitely variable, and what we're probably mainly interested in within the grid are numbers which are under 100%. Now I'm just going to move this on down and show you a feature that will enable the lines to go beyond 100%. And we'll just look at some of the reasons why you might want to go beyond 100% in a little while. Certainly those people who've been using Fibonacci for a while will probably be quite used to going beyond 100%, and we'll see the significance of this just a little later on. So I will just return this. In fact, I don't think I want that line, so I'll just allow it to go, and there we are. Now exactly the same will happen with the vertical options, but what you may have noticed is that I've got the whole area here, this little area where I can adjust the horizontals, but I don't actually have the verticals. I haven't got all of the controls there. So there's a little feature, and it's the furthest left button, and just by clicking on that I can then move around the control bar at the top. Screen options has now come over to the left, and if I click it again, then vertical options does, and I can then make full use of those controls. So when you're using it in sort of normal size, it's really no problem. You can actually get at everything. But if you're doing it sort of really down to sort of fine detail, quite small size, then it'll be quite handy to be able to just switch this around and adjust either the verticals or the horizontals, as the case may be. Right, so there are some of the basic controls, and we'll look at one or two other features next.